Today I'm going to be grilling because that's what you do during the summertime. And that's why I'm gonna make my marinated flank steak with corn, asparagus, and tomato salad. It's light and fresh, yet hearty and satisfying at the same time, so it's the perfect summer food. So if you wanna know how to make this, then go fire up your grill or grab your grill pan and I'll show you how to make this. The good thing about this recipe is that the hard work is already done. I already have a flank steak marinating in the fridge, so the rest of it is super easy. All you're gonna need for this dish is flank steak, brown sugar, shallots, asparagus, red wine, corn, sweet onion, Dijon mustard, cider vinegar, honey, olive oil, garlic, cherry tomatoes, salt, pepper, and basil. I have 6 ounces of cherry tomatoes that I just sliced. If they're big, I just put them into quarters. And I think they're so cute because they're like different colors, like red and yellow. So I also have a sweet onion. This is a smallish Vidalia onion. If you have a large one, then use a quarter of it, but I'm gonna use half of this one because it's pretty small. Make sure that whatever onion you use, whether it's Vidalia or Walla Walla, I like that word, that it is sweet because you're gonna eat it raw in the salad. Slice it thinly. To your tomatoes and onions, you're just gonna kind of pickle them. So I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of cider vinegar, so apple cider vinegar, and then bump up the sweetness factor with honey. So I have a tablespoon of honey. Keep it in here for about 15 minutes. I mean, up to an hour. It'll be better the longer it sits. I also have the rest of my vegetables. I have 2 ears of corn, and we're actually gonna throw this on the grill first. Next, we have 6 ounces of asparagus. I usually just snap the end of one, see where it breaks off, and then use that as a guide to cut the rest so that I have least amount of waste. That's good. It helps you out if your asparagus is on the thinner side, but you know, I couldn't find it, so I'm just gonna have to make do with these thicker asparagus. To that, you're just gonna drizzle on 1 tablespoon of olive oil over everything, divided. Now, I should mention that I did oil my grill with vegetable oil. It's not even in my ingredients board, but you should oil your grill, whether it's outdoors or indoors. Just brush it lightly or just wipe it with a cloth or some paper towel. Just gonna give it a light seasoning. Salt and pepper. Just gonna give it a toss-a-roo. Now I'm just gonna pull out my marinated steak. It's been sitting in the fridge overnight. It's no secret, I love flank steak. You'll see it repeated over and over again in all my videos and on our website, but it's because it's so big, so it feeds a lot of people, but it's pretty cheap. But you know, because it is cheap, it's a tougher cut of meat. So you do have to kind of treat it differently. You either have to cook it really quickly on high heat or you gotta marinate it. And when you marinate it, oh my gosh, all is right with the world. So all you do is grab 1.5 pounds of flank steak. And mine was maybe slightly a little bigger, but that's fine. And then you grab 1.5 cups of dry red wine in a measuring cup. I like to do it this way because I think it's just easier. And then you squirt in 1/2 cup of Dijon mustard. I just keep squeezing into the measuring cup until it reaches up to 2 cups, and then you know you definitely have 1/2 cup. Then you add 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar. So make sure your measuring cup is nicely packed and full before you pour it in. And you just whisk it together so everything is nicely dissolved. And then you add in 1 tablespoon of kosher salt as well as 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. Just mix it all together until it's somewhat dissolved. Then you pour it into a gallon-sized zip-top resealable bag. And when I do this, I kind of just hold on to it, but if you want to help yourself out, put it into a taller container so that you don't have to use both hands. And then you pour everything in and give it a smush with your hands. That way I know for sure that everything's well blended. Meanwhile, you also have to have 8 cloves of garlic, as well as 3 shallots. They should be on the larger side, and it doesn't matter how you cut them. Throw your steak into your marinade, make sure it's well submerged, as well as the shallots and the garlic. Then you try to do your best to squeeze out all the air, make sure everything's tossed and well incorporated. seal it up nice and good, and then place it into a larger bowl, or in my case, I use this little baking pan, and that way I can make sure that it doesn't overflow in the fridge. And if it does, then you can catch it in there. And if you don't want to do this overnight, you can actually do this and just leave it out at room temperature for up to 2 hours. And it'll pretty much do the same thing, but I say, why bother? Just do it overnight, it's easier. Pull your steak out of the marinade. Drain off as much of the marinade as you can. And this color of this marinade is pretty funky, but believe me, something about the red wine and the mustard together, it just tenderizes this meat, gives it so much unique flavor. Okay, and then what I'm doing next is blotting it nice and dry with the paper towel on both sides. The marinade is already stuck inside of the meat, so you don't have to worry that you're wiping any of the sauce away. It's done its job. But you don't want it to be sopping wet when it goes on the grill. Otherwise, it'll steam, not sear. Do the other side. And if there's any huge chunks of garlic or shallot stuck to it, then take that away too. You don't want that to burn on the grill. And I'm just gonna lightly sprinkle, and I just mean lightly, the whole surface of both sides with salt and pepper, because there is salt in the marinade, and the Dijon mustard had salt in it too. So you don't need much. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna break my tongs. For this marinade, just throw it away. You shouldn't reuse it again, okay? So I'm just gonna take this all over there, start grilling up my vegetables, wash up, and I'll meet you back here. My veggies look so beautiful, and I just put them on the grill at the same time, but the asparagus take much quicker than the corn. So the asparagus will go anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the thickness of your asparagus. I like them to stay a little bit crisp tender because I don't want them to be overcooked. And then with the corn, I make sure that you go for anywhere between 6 to 10 minutes, also according to the hotness of your grill. And I just love this burnt color on it. It's so bronze and beautiful. I'm just gonna shave the kernels off of it by inverting a smaller bowl into a larger bowl to act as my little stand. And I also like corn to be just a little bit crisp, tender. So it's still cooked, but corn is one of those ingredients that you can actually eat raw if you wanted to. It's especially sweet during the summertime. Just gonna dump that into my marinated pickling liquid. And then with my asparagus, I'm gonna do something a little fancy and fun, but you really don't have to. I'm gonna try my best to split this all the way down in the center, lengthwise. Just carefully drag your knife across and down. And I'm gonna just cut it on the bias. So I'm gonna go maybe in 3 chunks. Beautiful. The last touch is fresh basil. Now in the summertime, basil is abundant, so you kind of don't have an excuse not to use it if you're making this during the summer. You wanna shoot for anywhere between 6 to 10 leaves about. Make very thin slices. This is called chiffonade. Fluffy and fragrant. Just gonna add that in here as well. Let's head back to the grill, fire it up again. Let's put our steaks on there. Perfect. I'm gonna let this go for approximately 10 minutes total, but it always depends on the heat of your grill. So you just watch it. You don't want flank steak to overcook. That's the main thing. That's all you have to do, and then you're pretty much done. My steak is resting nicely. You gotta let it rest for about 10 minutes after it's done. And if you can see, there's already some juice pooling out of it, even though I didn't slice into it. So you can imagine if you slice into it right away, all of that delicious moist juice will just flow out and your steak will be more dry. So let it rest for a good 10 minutes. So I have about 3 minutes left on the clock. So I'm just gonna toss my salad together at this point. And I already know I'm gonna need some seasoning. Salt. Pepper, and there was a little bit of olive oil clinging onto the corn and asparagus before it went on the grill, but I'm gonna just add a little more because I feel like not that much is in here. You just need a tiny bit. Now, when the steak is nicely rested, I'm gonna just slice it against the grain. The lines of the steak are naturally going this way. You'll be able to see it clearly. Go diagonal against the grain and tilt your knife a little bit. And cutting it this way will result in a tender, less chewy bite of steak. And then all we have to do is plate it. Now, today would have been an excellent day to grill outside if we had our grill outside, but we just couldn't put it out there. So indoor grill is just fine. And yeah, this steak is as tender as could be, which is amazing for flank steak. What do you think?
It's quite delicious.
Quite.
Quite delicious. The meat is perfectly cooked. Nice and pink in the middle.
Yep. That's what you want. You don't want it to be all gray or brown in the middle because then it gets tough again.
The salad is perfect combination.
I don't know if it's like being in Illinois or something, but the corn is on point.
Yeah, the corn is delicious.
It's perfectly summer. That's the best way I can describe it. The salad has a hint of tartness, but it's mostly reads as sweet. All the vegetables are like crisp, tender, or even fresh. And that basil adds that fragrance that you want. And the steak itself is so well marinated, has so much seasoning and flavor on its own. Tender, juicy, very surprising for a flank steak. For substitutions, you can use skirt steak instead if you can't find flank steak or don't want to use it. You just have to cut down your cooking time. And for the grilled vegetables, if asparagus is not your thing, then you can totally switch it up and use different kinds of vegetables that you want. Try zucchini, summer squash, I mean, whatever. It'll be really good. But make sure you use fresh corn that's in season, that you grill and cut off the cob, because that makes the world of difference, I think. Well, I hope you enjoyed spending this time with us today, and I hope you try out this recipe because I feel like you can't get through summer without making it at least once. Be sure to check out our behind the scenes. We'll leave a link for you. And if you like this video, remember to tell us by pushing like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks so much for watching. Happy grilling. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Seriously, these vegetables are like candy.
Corn.
The tomatoes.
You can't beat the Midwest corn.
Uh-huh.